Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my FXmovies.20 channel? Thank you so much. The decision originated from a moment of vulnerability alone in my poorly illuminated apartment. The silence was intolerable. The burden of another unsuccessful relationship weighed on my thoughts, and I sought neither love nor connection, but a transient getaway to alleviate the loneliness. I paused while grasping my phone, my thumb poised above the screen. This was an unprecedented experience for me, akin to transgressing an imperceptible boundary. My pals would incessantly remind me if they were aware. However, this evening I was indifferent. This evening I sought to forget. I navigated through alternatives without overanalyzing. It seemed transactional and remote, precisely what I desired. I selected an individual solely without closely examining the particulars, sufficient to finalize the preparations. After several text exchanges, the arrangement was finalized and somebody would arrive at my residence within the hour. Upon terminating the call, I experienced an unusual amalgamation of anticipation and remorse. What was my activity? This does not pertain to me, however, the prospect of withdrawing appeared equally humiliating. I justified it, convincing myself it was innocuous, merely one night that would be inconsequential in the broader context. The minutes elapsed slowly as I made my preparations. I was uncertain about the reason for my anxiety. This was intended to be uncomplicated. I engaged in superfluous housekeeping, pacing the room and scrutinizing my reflection in the mirror. The amount of work I expended on what should have been a purely transactional matter was absurd. A tap on the door interrupted my contemplation. My chest constricted as I approached it. Inhaling deeply, I opened the door, anticipating the presence of an unfamiliar individual. Conversely, my heart plummeted, and I became immobilized. There stood an individual I recognized immediately, although my mind required a second to comprehend. It was she, the younger sister of my best friend, a name I had encountered numerous times in informal discourse, a visage I had observed in familial photographs on my friend's social media. She appeared as astonished as I was, her eyes expanding as realization set in. Neither of us uttered a word for what seemed like an eternity. The atmosphere between us was laden with incredulity, discomfort, and an indefinable element. She commenced, but her voice wavered. "What is your purpose for being here?" I ultimately succeeded in inquiring, my tone more incisive than I had intended. She faltered, glancing downward momentarily before making eye contact with me. "I was unaware that it was you." The revelation struck me with overwhelming force. She failed to recognize my name in the messages, and I did not recognize hers. This incident was an accident, a coincidence. Nonetheless, that did not diminish its mortifying nature. A multitude of thoughts surged through my mind. How had she arrived at this point, engaging in this activity? Her brother aware, ought I to contact him? However, the expression on her face, a blend of defiance and vulnerability, halted me. This was not the appropriate moment for accusations or judgments. I stepped aside to permit her entry, but I was uncertain why she entered with hesitation, her motions taut as if preparing for an interrogation. I shut the door behind her, the gravity of the situation bearing down on us both. The atmosphere was laden with unarticulated inquiries, and for an instant, neither of us was certain how to commence. I was compelled to gaze at her, attempting to reconcile the individual I believed I knew with the one before me now. She was attired in a manner I had never witnessed before, more refined and self-assured. Nonetheless, a vulnerability in her eyes undermined her composed facade. "I was unaware it was you," she reiterated, her tone more resolute, although still tinged with apprehension. "I was unaware it was you as well," I responded, but the remark seemed insincere. It was evident that neither of us had foreseen this, yet that did not diminish its bizarre quality. She folded her arms and averted my sight. "What are the next steps? Will you inform him?" "Identify whom?" I inquired, despite fully comprehending her intent. She stated, gazing up at me, "My brother." Her countenance exhibited a combination of defiance and desperation. "Will you inform him about this?" I exhaled audibly, raking my fingers through my hair. "I am uncertain. I have not yet got the opportunity to comprehend what this entails." Her jaw clenched. "It is not his concern. This is not applicable. Regardless of your perception, my intention is not to do harm to anyone." I wished to trust her, although the circumstances appeared too convoluted to clarify in a few phrases. "What circumstances led you to this location?" I inquired, gesturing ambiguously to the space. "The circumstances and all that was illogical." She paused, and for an instant, I believed she would remain silent. She inhaled deeply and stated, "It's complicated. I required the funds." "That is all the information you require." "Is he aware?" I inquired cautiously, aiming to avoid excessive pressure while seeking clarity. No, she said swiftly, her tone incisive. You will remain unaware. You will not disclose this to him. I delayed my response, prompting her to advance, her demeanor becoming more severe. Promise me, she insisted, her tone authoritative. You will remain silent. Her remark struck me as a challenge, yet there was an underlying vulnerability that I could not overlook. She was not merely requesting that I maintain her confidentiality. She implored me to safeguard her, to maintain the semblance of herself that her brother still revered. I shall not disclose this to him, I concluded. The words felt burdensome, like a heavy load. I was uncertain about bearing it. Her shoulders eased marginally, yet the tension between us persisted. We remained silent. We were both uncertain about the next course of action. Al existed for situations such as these. There is no straightforward method to traverse the chaos we have encountered. I sought to pose further inquiries for clarification. However, the expression in her eyes indicated that she had already said more than she intended. The stillness between us extended awkwardly. We were all anticipating the other to initiate conversation. I observed the turmoil manifesting in her eyes. She was grappling with a tempest of concealed emotions. I was uncertain of how to commence, yet I could not permit it to conclude in this manner, an uncomfortable impasse devoid of solutions. I have now commenced speaking in a quieter tone. I am not attempting to pass judgment on you, yet this situation is concerning. It is illogical. What is the rationale behind your actions? Her countenance changed. A brief expression of rage appeared on her face. What is the significance? You obtained what you desired, correct? The acrimony in her tone surprised me, however I declined to yield. This does not pertain to me. You are the sister of my friend. I did not anticipate. Do you believe I anticipated this? She retorted, interrupting me. Do you believe I awoke one day and decided this is the life I desire? You are unaware of my experiences. Her voice faltered slightly at the conclusion. I recognized that this was not merely defiance, it was agony. She was not attempting to excuse her actions. She was endeavoring to endure. Then please inform me, I requested softly. Assist me in comprehending. She exhibited reluctance. Her arms were firmly crossed over her chest. For a brief interval, I believed she would remain unresponsive. She subsequently inhaled heavily and averted her gaze. She acknowledged that it is not solely about the financial aspect. Her voice was scarcely audible. It pertains to control regarding undertaking an endeavor for my own benefit, according to my own conditions, regardless of others' expectations of me. Her remarks impacted me more profoundly than I anticipated. This was not a matter of insurrection or impulsiveness. It pertained to the reclamation of something she believed she had forfeited. I aimed to express something reassuring, something that would facilitate this for both of us. However, nothing occurred to me. What is his status? I inquired cautiously, alluding to her brother. What do you believe his response would be if he were aware? She laughed cynically, shaking her head. He would not comprehend. He would evaluate me in the same manner as others. He has consistently been the exemplary individual, the one who excels in all endeavors. I am merely the failure, the individual unable to organize her life. Her remarks were laden with wrath, accompanied by profound sorrow. I then comprehended the extent of her burdens, the extent of her concealment from those nearest to her. There is no necessity for you to demonstrate anything to anyone, I stated. Even I was astonished by the honesty of my voice. You are greater. The errors you perceive in yourself. She gazed at me, then her eyes softening for the first occasion. Do you believe it is that straightforward? I confessed my ignorance. However, I am certain that this does not represent your true self. There is no necessity for you to continue this action. She gazed at me for an extended duration, as though contemplating the veracity of my statement. Ultimately, she stated, perhaps, however, ceasing is not a simple endeavor. I acknowledged that this constituted her reality and her struggle. My thoughts on the matter did not alter her experience. My only recourse was to endeavor to be truthful, notwithstanding its ineffectiveness in resolving the situation. We remained there for what seemed like an eternity, ensnared in a peculiar delicate comprehension. Neither of us was aware of the subsequent course of action, although the gravity of the preceding dialogue lingered oppressively between us. Neither of us could readily disengage from this situation, yet a definitive course of action was also absent. She initiated the conversation, her voice now subdued. I do not require your sympathy. You are aware I have made my decisions and accept the consequences. I do not seek a savior. I am not attempting to save you, I responded. However, this is insignificant. One cannot only feign that it did not occur. I cannot feign that it did not occur. Our eyes locked, and for the first time, there was an absence of fury and defensiveness, a subtle weakness that rendered her appearance significantly more youthful than her actual age. What do you require from me? What actions will you undertake? The inquiry lingered, and I lacked a response. What actions are available to me? Disclosing to her brother seemed like treachery, and remaining silent appeared like cooperation. She warranted her solitude and autonomy, but I could not dispel the notion that I owed my friend something as well. I will not disclose this information to him, I stated resolutely, my tone unwavering. However, I am also not in agreement with this. Your value exceeds this, regardless of your perception. She emitted a caustic laugh. You express that as if altering it is effortless, as if I could merely snap my fingers and resolve everything. I acknowledge that it is challenging. However, remaining in this will not yield any progress. You need not undertake this independently. You need not bear all burdens alone. She averted her gaze, her jaw clenching. You believe I have not made an effort? Whenever I believe I am making progress, something hinders my advancement. This is merely survival. That is the entirety of it. I approached, reducing my vocal volume. Survival is not your exclusive objective. You merit more than that. However, you are the one individual capable of determining whether it is sufficient. Her shoulders sagged a little, the resolve dissipating from her. For an instant she appeared diminutive, merely delicate. I recognized the considerable courage she showed to persevere despite her decisions not aligning with my own beliefs. What occurs next? She inquired, her voice scarcely perceptible. I paused prior to responding. The decision is yours. I will not compel you to act, but I encourage you to reflect on our discussion. You own greater potential than this. You merely need to have faith in it. She nodded slowly, avoiding eye contact. Perhaps I am uncertain. No further remarks were necessary. No satisfactory resolution to address the unresolved issues she faced. The door momentarily hesitated before glancing back at me. Thank you, I suppose, for not exacerbating the situation. Upon the door's closure behind her, I found myself solitary with my reflections. The flat appeared more desolate than ever. However, an unusual sense of conclusiveness permeated the silence. The subsequent events were beyond my control, yet I could not dispel the notion that this night had altered something significant for the two of us.